Sometimes authors just get it, and in 300 pages or less, they're able to communicate and tell a story so beautiful that you are left spellbound by the book itself. Last month, I read 4 books just like that. These are my 4 reads that are 300-ish pages or less. Some of them are far less than 300 pages that are great stories that keep you hooked, keep you engaged, and keep you wanting more, and have made my top 10 books of all time as well. Let's talk about them and more. Welcome back to my page. If you're new here, my name is Majorian Lowe. I talk about books, culture, and everything else related to Black folks on this page. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, and follow. Connect with me here on Instagram, TikTok, all the places wherever you may be interacting with me at. I'd love to have you as part of my community to share more about what I'm reading, what I think about what I'm reading, and just to get your opinion and perspective on the things that are related to all the stuff we care about. And today I want to give semi-full reviews of 4 books I read recently. 2 of them have been life-changing, and the other 2 I think are just good books in general. But let's talk about the book. The 4 books that I'm talking about are Song of Solomon by Toni Morrison. I'm also talking about Ring Shout by P. Djeli Clark, James by Percival Everett, and Dominion by Addie Kitchens. I'm going to start with the shortest to the longest. So let's go with the shortest first. Up first, we have Ring Shout by P. Djeli Clark, which I have talked about a bit on this page already. This is a novella by P. Djeli Clark that takes us down to Macon, Georgia in the early 1900s. It's just 185 pages. The book is about the creation of a monster that is actually terrorizing people in the Ku Klux Klan, becomes monsters called Ku Kluxes, and their infectious diseases are spread through the watching of the film Birth of a Nation, which is being extremely polarizing and popping up all across America. So it takes us back to 1915, and we're dealing with what is happening in that time period and the expansion of the Klan, and also just the expansion of racism and hatred across America. And the book is really good. It deals with Black identities and Gullah culture and the deep Georgian and Carolinian roots. It also talks about and just has this kind of feel to it that is ingrained and enmeshed in Black culture in general. I think this book is funny in a lot of parts. It's sad in some parts. And for me, the read was good. It was kind of creepy. I will say the way that P. Djeli Clark is able to kind of describe in detail the monsters on here, like these monsters that you see on the cover are written about in such graphic detail that I think the artists were able to kind of create this description and this beautiful picture. But it is such a graphically written novel that it does kind of give you the heebie-jeebies. But it's fun, it's engaging to read. I thought the story itself was good. I thought the remnants of actual African-American history, like the references to Ida B. Wells and the references to just things that are happening in real time, were so good and so timely and so thoughtful. And P. Djeli Clark's understanding of like Black history and culture, and the way that he kind of was intentional about his craft and the message that he gave, and making the Klan this actual, like making this hate that the Klan feels, turn them into actual monsters. I thought that was fun. I enjoyed it. It was a bit adventurous. It was a bit different than what I usually read. I'm usually not like a big sci-fi person, so this was good for me, and I enjoy reading it. I'm currently reading Kindred by Octavia Butler, so that's another experiment in sci-fi, but it's also relatively short. I think it's about 250 pages, and it's been good thus far. I know it's like a seminal text and a big work, but I'm reading this one about halfway through. I'm at the fight for people who are familiar with Kindred. But yeah, I really liked Ring Shout by P. Djeli Clark. I think it's a great read if you're looking for something short, sweet, but also interesting to read. I got through it in about a weekend or so, but yeah, good read. Now, Dominion. I have nothing but absolutely positive things to say about this book. This book, for me, if this book was another 300 pages, I would not have stopped reading it. It was only 230 pages, not even that much, because that's the description about Addie Kitchens. The book itself was 228 pages, and this was a phenomenal book. If Greenleaf was a book, if the TV show Greenleaf had a companion book, I think it'd be Dominion. Dominion was deeply Southern, deeply historically accurate. It was dark. I've never read a book that took you into the mind of a. This is a bit of a spoiler, so let me say that first. So I'm going to talk a bit more in detail about this one than I will about P. Diddy Clark's book. But this book deals with basically a serial rapist who is on the prowl and attacking black women and using his prowess and his fame in the town as being the son of a preacher, but also being like a star football player and the light of everybody's eyes to kind of have his way with the girls in the town that's his age. And for her to have these accounts of like his mindset during each rape, it was just kind of like super jarring to read, but also super, the place she had to go to craft that narrative, right, I think was really interesting. And it shows kind of the ways that patriarchy unchecked in black men and in black boys can create monsters. And I think it shows what happens when people are silent about the little monster that they know exists sometimes, and the monster that they're creating in children from displayed patterns and behaviors. So the characters in the book include Wonder Boy, who is the perpetrator of all those crimes, but also Diamond, which is one of the women that he falls in love with. Or the woman he falls in love with, he doesn't rape her, he falls in love with her and gets her pregnant. And then you have Priscilla, Saber, and then some other characters that are kind of in and out of the book. But those four people are really the most important folks. And Priscilla and Saber, who is the head pastor, Priscilla's the first lady, their attitudes and their dispositions kind of set up the standard and the expectation for what happens throughout the book. Their relationship with each other sets up the understanding that Wonder Boy is able to navigate this world and should be able to take and conquer and get what he wants because he is, the son of Saber, the king of Dominion, Mississippi. And it just kind of shows, like, on one hand, I think Wonder Boy was really navigating his coming of age story and trying to come himself. Two, he was trying to navigate, he was in the shadow of four other brothers, or I had 5 or 6 boys. 4 other brothers, and he was like the breakout star, quote unquote, the Wonder Boy, the wonder of the world, and navigating that and how to show up as himself and how to be himself, which he didn't know how to do. And I think that his understanding of his manhood and patriarchy and his role in like society was to mimic that of his father's, but to do it in a way that he could demand such attention and such prowess that didn't require the bravado or the extra showing the physicality point of manhood, because he played football. So he already, like, his physical strength was already on display on a constant basis because of football and because of how good he was at the sport. So his tactic for dominion and domination really came from the sexual violence that he inflicted, and also from the mental violence he inflicted upon Diamond. And this book was also like deeply black, deeply Southern. While it was as heavy a topic as it was, there were so many moments of laughter in it, and I think that's one of the things that great authors are able to do. They're able to tell a serious and impassioned story while also making you laugh and making you reflect upon the good points and the parts of our shared cultural identity that we all, as Black Southerners, as Black Americans, kind of can relate to, while talking about something that needs to be addressed in our community and kind of having the tough conversation about it. And Addie Kitchens does a phenomenal job with that. For this to be her debut novel, I cannot wait to see what else she produces, because this was just phenomenal. Like, this is an excellent read. I can't recommend it enough. The cover art is gorgeous. Look at the attention to detail. Talk about length, talk about strength, talk about color. But I think it's just a phenomenal read. If you're still here at this point, I also want to reference that I'm hosting a Brothers in Book Club, and we are reading this month Clay Cane's Burn the Master's House Down. He actually will be joining us for our first book club meeting this coming Monday, August 24th at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The link is available on request. And also, if you join the group chat where we're discussing the book and or ideas in general, I'll be sure to share the link there. And we'd love to have you as a part of a member of our group to talk about the book in general, but please join us for our reading of Burned Down Master's House, where we'll be having Clay Klein as our acclaimed guest for our first meeting of our book club. We'll be discussing the introduction through chapter 1. I hope to have you there. And if not, hope to have you join us another time to discuss the book in general. Back to our regularly scheduled programming. Our next 2 books. So James by Percival Everett, the Pulitzer-winning book, has, I think at this time it was a Pulitzer finalist, but it has been talked about at length. But this is, I think, required reading as well. This book is like so good. There are so many points, so many things I can talk about in this book, so many things that I have just like enjoyed. Percival Everett's prose is really becoming one of my favorites as well. His wit, his ability to make racist and racism seem so stupid in his writing is one of my favorite parts. Like the way he talks about it, the way he frames it, not from a position of like not understanding what racism is or not understanding how racism operates, but he pokes fun at it because the belief in it is so idiotic and so stupid, and it almost is insulting to the person on the other end on the receiving end of racism, that they have to deal with it because of someone else's perceptions or misapplied understandings about how race changes or makes us different in any way, if applicable. And he just does a phenomenal job of really making that plain. So I love James. I think it was probably my read of the year. I'm not gonna lie. Between James and Dominion, I think they're neck and neck. These books, I think I read The Trees at the beginning of the year too. That was also really good. But James, that line in chapter 19, I think it's chapter 19, where he says, "With my pencil, I wrote myself into existence." Is that chapter 19 he says that at? It's not. But there's a line in here where he says, "With my pencil, I wrote myself into existence," after he gets a pencil. So if you're unfamiliar with James, of course, it's the story of the enslaved Jim from Huckleberry Finn. It's his perspective of what happens after him and Huckleberry Finn get separated, and also when they get back together, and the choices that James makes, and his like desire to be free and seek freedom, and trying to get free after escaping and running away from slavery, thinking that his master was going to sell him. And there are so many like impossible decisions that James has to make throughout this book, and so many. Whenever I read books like James and books about slavery, it just makes me realize that like the people in these books, slaves, the lack of autonomy sometimes, I think we don't understand because we don't live in it, but we don't understand how little choice Black folks had in the ability to decide or do anything for themselves as a consequence of slavery. Like, you really didn't have freedom to think that you could do something. I think like slavery was a mindset first, and so defeating the battle in your mind and changing your perspective there first, then allowed you to really get free, because you had to believe that you could be free first, and you had to. And James, from Percival Everett's perspective, never had the mentality of a slave, but he didn't have the mentality of a free person either. And I think that it took him losing 2 people on his journey back to Huck, and having to choose Huck over one of the people he was traveling with, to really free himself mentally and to have the perspective of a free mind, and also to see just like to see someone who had the mentality of a slave so much that on the steamboat that he just refused to even dream about freedom and to think about a life outside of slavery as it existed. And also in Kindred, I'm reading it, and in Kindred, Dan has several conversations with Sarah, one of the main characters in Kindred, talking about how Sarah has this, like, Sarah can't think about life outside of the plantation, Rufus's dad, the Wildland plantation. Like, life is good there, it is what it is, it's fine. She can't think of life outside of that. And she says, she has a slave mentality. I can't blame her. She's a victim of her circumstance. And I think James has a similar experience on the boat. And their perspectives as writers, Percival Everett and Octavia Butler's ability to give grace to the people who maintain that mentality while also recognizing that there are other people who will dream and think about freedom at any means necessary. I think it is an amazing feat and talent, and I can't recommend this book enough either. It's only 300 pages. I think it's 303 pages exactly, 303. And phenomenal read. You'll get through it very quickly. Percival Everett is the master of a short chapter. So if you're somebody that likes chapter delineations and it can get through books better, if you can have like a stopping point per chapter, his chapters are usually no more than about 10 pages. So check out James as well by Percival Everett. And then finally, our longest and probably most challenging book of this short and sweet series is Song of Solomon by Toni Morrison, which was my book club's previous read. It is a total of 336 pages, which is actually one of Morrison's longer works. But Song of Solomon, man, what can I say positive about Song of Solomon, about the personal odyssey of Milkman from the north to the south and back to the north, and discovering who he is and learning and questioning and becoming and all of the things he dealt with to really get free, to learn to fly, to learn who he was and who his people were. I think that this book is required reading for Black men, and I've said that in other videos before, but I think that Song of Solomon really is a book that allows you to sit with yourself and think about, like, what does freedom mean to you? What does your life look like as a free being? Not as a free person, but like not free from the systems you live in, not free from the things that literally and physically oppress you, but free in the mind. Kind of like James in the freedom mentality, but like, what does it mean to live in a modern society where slavery in America doesn't exist per se or in mass? What does it mean to look and be and feel free, right? And does that differ per person? Because I think there's arguments that Pilate in the book was already free and living freely, and her brother Macon would argue that she was a bum and a slave to her situation, but she could argue the inverse, that he was a slave to working and a slave to money. And so I think Toni Morrison does a phenomenal job in Song of Solomon of talking about how the weights of life, the things that we allow to hold us down. If you want to learn how to fly, you give up all that shit that weigh you down, like Guitar told Milkman, and learning how to separate chosen barriers and chosen responsibilities from mandatory responsibilities, how to separate assumed identities and assumed beliefs about yourself from what is true, and who you are and who you believe you are and who you say you are and how you show up, and how does your existence change or interact with those around you? How did Milkman's understanding of himself, how did his existence change or interact with his family, interact with his family's existence, and the way he understood his family and his role in his family? How did his existence change his sisters' lives? How did all these things come together to create this understanding and this just like this world, right? How do you exist? Like Kamala Harris, you think you just fell out of a coconut tree? You exist in the context of all that came before you and everything around you. And Song of Solomon is about Milkman learning to come to understand that. And it was great. It was funny as well. This is a funny book from the beginning, with Porter standing in the window yelling and pissing on the crowd and the women heckling him from down there. It's like about his desire to have sex with a woman, from Milkman and Guitar's conversations. It was real, and it showed how quickly things can switch up and get violent in communities with Black men, sometimes with men in general, in a society based on domination. It was a story that really made you question, like, what is fundamentally true, and what do labels mean in some instances. Like, I think about the relationship between Hagar and Milkman, but also how it's framed, right? Like how Pilate says they're like brother and sister, and Reba says, no, they're cousins. And Pilate says, what's the difference in how you love or treat a brother, a sister, or a cousin, right? I think about the telling of stories and how Milkman really has a unclear understanding of his relationship, or of his mother's relationship to her father, and what happened when he passed, because of one Macon story where he basically says that his mother was licking her father's lips, her father's fingers when he died, sucking her fingers. And another one, the other story, her mother is saying that basically, you know, I wasn't doing that, of course not, I was doing that, but I was kissing his hands after he passed away. You know, there's obviously some ambiguity there, but Toni leaves it up to us to determine who's right or who's telling the truth, I guess, because before we learn that story, she tells us that the father himself had thought the relationship and his daughter's fetishization, or his daughter's obsession with him, had got a bit inappropriate. So yeah, I think Song of Solomon is just a book that makes you really sit and question fundamental beliefs that you have, and what you hold to be self-evident and true, and what is the difference between a truth and the truth, right? And I think all of us can hold truths that we believe to be true, but then what is the absolute truth in certain situations? And Song of Solomon answers that question. Well, it doesn't answer that question. It opens the door for us to ask that question of ourselves. And so those are some reads that I recommend checking out, that are short and sweet. You know, I think all of these are great. I think Ring Shout is probably an easier read than maybe a Song of Solomon or a James or even a Dominion, because these are heavier books. This one is not as heavy, it's more fun and light. But I think all of these are great books to read. In order of difficulty, I would probably say I would go in the order I talked about them, from longest to shortest. So Ring Shout being the easiest, Dominion next, James, and then Song of Solomon. In order of enjoyability, I think I'd go, I don't know, they are very good to me. Actually, I'd probably move this to the back and just go like this. So this order, so Dominion, James, Song of Solomon, Ring Shout, or maybe, yeah, I think that's right. And then in order of favorites, now that's tough. I don't know. I think James and Song of Solomon would be number 2 for me in this lineup. Dominion was the best read of these 3. I love all these books, but Dominion was the best read for me. So I put Dominion number 2. So it'll be 1, 2, 2, 4 for me. I can't hold them in that way. Hold on, let me see if I can. Hold on. I think I'd go 1, 2, 2, 4. So Dominion being the best read, James and Song of Solomon being the second best read, and then Ring Shout being the 4th best read. But they were all really good reads. And yeah, so these are 4 books that I've read recently that I really, really enjoyed, and think you will as well, that are at 330-ish pages or less. Books that are 300-ish pages or less, and I think we all need a little bit more short read in our lives, because it's fun, and it's good to just get your brain, wet your whistle a little bit, and get your brain stimulated for some short, good fiction. I'll see y'all later. Again, please like, subscribe, and share this video if you enjoy this type of content, and I hope to talk to you again soon. Love and light. Peace.